"No one marries my kind, but I can bear children," she said. The human veteran's answer shocked her. Captain Mara Talon looked out from the observation deck of the human transport ship, her eyes scanning the expanse of stars and the distant glow of the Vian colony orbiting the purple-blue planet below. The journey had been long and quiet, save for the occasional chatter of her fellow crew members as they checked supplies and systems. Yet, Mara felt a mix of excitement and unease. This was her first time on an alien world, and she knew that humans were not always welcomed here. The Vian were a proud species, known for their strict traditions and disciplined society. Their society had survived for centuries with a rigid order that humans often disrupted simply by existing. Mara had served in multiple human campaigns across the galaxy. She was a veteran in every sense, skilled, calm under pressure, and observant. But this mission was unlike any battle she had faced. Here, there were no enemies firing lasers or ships in combat formations. The challenge was subtler. It was cultural, social, and moral. Humans were not part of Vian society, and being outsiders meant they were watched with suspicion. Any misstep could ruin the fragile trust that had been promised through diplomatic channels. The transport ship descended slowly, its thrusters cutting through the thin atmosphere surrounding the orbital station. Mara could see the sprawling city beneath, clusters of tall towers that glimmered with alien metal and glass, linked by bridges and transport lines. The architecture was elegant but foreign, designed to balance efficiency with aesthetics in ways that human cities rarely considered. The Vian clearly valued harmony with technology, but everything was different. The proportions, the colors, even the way light reflected off the surfaces felt deliberate, precise, and alien. As the ship docked, Mara took a deep breath. She could feel the energy of the colony from this distance, the vibrations of life, the hum of activity, the careful order of a civilization that had survived for hundreds of years. She checked her equipment one last time, then walked toward the airlock. The doors hissed open, and a group of Vian greeted the arriving humans. They were tall, elegant, and slightly translucent in appearance, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. They studied the humans with a mix of curiosity and caution, their expressions carefully neutral. One of them stepped forward, a female named Lyra. She had sharp features and a commanding presence, but her posture carried a subtle hint of sadness, almost like a hidden weight. She addressed the human delegation in perfect Common, the universal language used for interspecies communication. "Welcome to Varanth Prime. We have been expecting you." Her voice was calm but carried authority. Mara nodded and stepped forward. "Thank you. We hope to cooperate and contribute to the colony in every way possible," she said, her voice steady. Despite the politeness, she noticed the slight tension in Lyra's stance. There was more behind her words than politeness or protocol. As the humans were escorted through the central plaza, Mara could see citizens of the Vian colony going about their daily routines. Some were working at floating platforms, moving goods with precise gestures that seemed almost choreographed. Others were interacting in small groups, their conversation fluid and musical, unlike any language Mara had encountered. Children played along the pathways, their laughter chiming like wind through metal reeds. It was peaceful, orderly, and beautiful, but she sensed an underlying rigidity. The colony functioned like a living machine, and any deviation from its norms might be noticed immediately. The delegation reached a large building, its doors adorned with intricate carvings that depicted scenes of Vian history. Mara followed quietly as the humans were shown to a council chamber. Inside, the Vian leaders were seated, their expressions solemn and expectant. This was the moment of first impressions, and Mara understood its weight. The leaders would observe her, not just for what she said, but for how she moved, how she reacted, even the subtle choices in her demeanor. It was then that Lyra spoke again, this time turning slightly toward Mara. "Captain Talon, may I speak with you privately?" The council members nodded, allowing the two to step aside. Mara followed, curious and alert. Once they were alone in a smaller chamber, Lyra's demeanor changed. She relaxed slightly but carried an intensity in her eyes. "I must tell you something," she began, her voice low, almost a whisper. "No one marries my kind, but I can bear children." Mara paused, understanding the weight of the words. In Vian society, lineage was sacred. Reproduction was not only a personal matter, it was tied to status, influence, and the survival of the species. To declare herself capable of bearing children while also acknowledging social rejection was a bold act. It was a statement of frustration, loneliness, and defiance all at once. "I see," Mara said slowly, choosing her words carefully. She could feel the tension in the air, the unspoken challenge behind Lyra's confession. She didn't respond with judgment or advice. Humans often approached situations with empathy, patience, and action rather than words. She waited, letting Lyra feel heard without pressure. Lyra continued, her eyes flicking toward the window that overlooked the city. "I have tried to follow the traditions, to find a partner worthy of me according to our laws, but they see me as unsuitable. I am not accepted, Captain, and yet I can create life. The contradiction is unbearable." Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the controlled composure she had maintained before. Mara considered this. She had encountered many situations in her life where strict rules and traditions hindered survival or happiness. Humans had often been rejected for their differences, their unconventional methods, and their unpredictable nature. But in those differences lay potential, and in potential lay change. "You are stronger than many I have seen," Mara said finally. "You've survived a society that limits you. That requires courage and intelligence. There are ways to survive and even thrive outside the usual paths, but change takes more than courage alone." Lyra looked at her, eyes searching for meaning. "What do you mean?" "Actions speak louder than words," Mara explained. "You can challenge your society, show them the value of cooperation and innovation. Sometimes, when rules are broken for the right reasons, new paths open. Humans have often found ways to thrive in societies that initially rejected them." Mara's gaze was steady. "You don't have to wait for permission to create a future worth living. You just have to take it carefully and wisely." Lyra blinked, considering Mara's words. There was a spark in her eyes, a flicker of hope that had been buried under years of isolation. She had expected criticism or indifference from the human, not understanding and strategy. Mara's response was not romantic, not manipulative. It was practical, yet deeply encouraging. The two of them left the chamber together, walking back toward the main hall where the council had reconvened. Mara observed the colony from above, noting the patterns of activity, the structured order, and the subtle inefficiencies that could be improved. Humans were naturally resourceful, and she knew that even small contributions could earn trust. During the initial meeting with the council, Mara spoke carefully. She outlined practical ways humans could help the colony: technology for more efficient agriculture, medical assistance for the aging population, and organizational strategies for resource management. She did not promise to change their culture overnight, nor did she undermine their traditions. Instead, she presented humans as allies who could enhance the colony's survival, subtly demonstrating human ingenuity without arrogance. Lyra watched quietly, her respect for Mara growing. This human veteran was not just a warrior, she was a strategist, an observer, and someone capable of bridging the gap between two very different species. Mara's presence alone challenged the preconceived notions about humans being unpredictable and untrustworthy. By the end of the day, Mara and her team had been given temporary quarters in the colony. They were allowed to interact with the community, though under careful observation. Mara spent time walking the streets, observing the Vian at work and play, learning their routines and understanding their priorities. She noticed children being taught precise skills from an early age, adults practicing controlled gestures in public spaces, and elders overseeing everything with keen eyes. The society was orderly but rigid. Any disruption could be seen immediately. That night, Mara stood at the window of her quarters, looking down at the glowing towers and the lights moving along the pathways. She thought of Lyra and the weight of her confession. There was a problem in this colony, one that went beyond population decline or resource management. There was loneliness, frustration, and rigid tradition that prevented growth. Mara knew that humans could help, but it would take patience, strategy, and courage to make the first move. For the first time in many years, Mara felt a spark of anticipation not tied to combat or missions. This was a different kind of challenge, one of influence, empathy, and the subtle art of change. The colony was a puzzle, the VN were cautious pieces, and she was an outsider piece that did not fit yet had the potential to complete the picture in unexpected ways. She turned from the window and prepared for sleep. Tomorrow, she would begin small interventions, observing more, listening more, understanding the subtle rules of society. But she also knew she would have to find ways to show that humans could be more than outsiders. They could be partners, allies, and catalysts for survival, and perhaps in the process, she could help Lyra find the freedom and respect she deserved. Outside, the stars continued to shine, silent witnesses to the meeting of two very different worlds. Mara closed her eyes, thinking of what lay ahead. Change was never easy, but it was often necessary. And humans had a way of surviving, thriving, and reshaping the world around them, even when the odds seemed impossible. The first day had ended, but Mara knew this was only the beginning. The colony would test her, the council would watch her, and the VN would judge her every action. But for the first time, she felt that humans might not just survive, they might lead. And perhaps, one day, they could even redefine what it meant to belong in a society that had never accepted them. The next morning, the colony was alive with activity, as if the city itself were a single organism breathing and moving with purpose. Mara Talon stepped out of the temporary quarters with a quiet determination, her eyes scanning the flowing patterns of Vian citizens. Every movement seemed deliberate, almost rehearsed, yet beneath the precision, she noticed small signs of stress, faces that seemed tense, gestures that were repeated to mask uncertainty. She met with her human team first. They gathered in a small observation room provided by the council, where holographic displays projected maps of the colony, showing energy flows, transportation hubs, and residential zones. Mara pointed at the areas where VN activity was highest and lowest. "We need to observe more," she said. "Watch how they interact, where they hesitate, and where they follow the rules strictly. Humans thrive by noticing small patterns that others ignore." Her team nodded, already accustomed to her calm, commanding style. They understood that observation was the first step toward understanding a society that didn't easily welcome outsiders. They had no weapons drawn, no shields raised. Here, intelligence and patience were the tools of survival. Later that day, Mara decided to walk the central plaza herself, blending with the citizens. Lyra appeared as if on cue, her presence quiet but undeniable. She joined Mara, keeping a careful distance but walking alongside her. Mara noticed that Lyra's posture was less rigid in her presence, her usual controlled movements softened slightly. "You are very different from other humans I have met," Lyra said, her voice low. "Most are loud, eager to prove themselves, or careless. You watch, you wait. You think," Mara smiled faintly. "Humans survive in many ways, not just by fighting. Observation and patience are just as powerful as strength or skill. You've survived by following rules, but there are times when rules become chains. I can show you ways to move beyond them without breaking your society." Lyra considered her words, a flicker of hope in her glowing eyes. I wish more of my people could see that. I am tired of being ignored, dismissed, because of traditions. Mara nodded. I understand. But change doesn't happen in a day. We start small. They walked through the market area, where citizens exchanged goods with mechanical efficiency. Mara noted the subtle ways humans could help without causing offense. A small adjustment to the delivery system could reduce waiting times. A medical aid station could help the elderly. Even offering solutions that increased efficiency would build trust. Mara made mental notes, already planning steps to prove humans were more than outsiders. They were partners. As they walked, Lyra stopped suddenly and looked down at a group of Vian children playing near a water feature. They were attempting a complex balancing game, one that required precision and timing. Several children fell repeatedly, their frustration clear. Lyra sighed. Even in play, the rules demand perfection. Mistakes are punished by ridicule, not corrected with patience. Mara watched, her mind working. Humans had faced strict systems before, and the way she had trained soldiers and civilians alike had taught her the value of encouragement, of teaching through guidance rather than fear. She knelt by the water, showing the children a small trick to balance. They looked at her curiously, hesitant at first, then smiled as they succeeded. Lyra observed quietly, her expression softening. You teach differently. You do not expect perfection. You allow failure as a step forward. Failure is part of learning, Mara said. Humans understand that. You can't grow without it. By the end of the day, Mara had gained the attention of several adults and elders. Her actions were subtle, respectful, and efficient. She had not confronted tradition directly, yet she had demonstrated a method of learning and improvement that the Vian had not considered. That evening, Mara returned to the observation deck, tired but satisfied. She reviewed her notes and noticed a pattern emerging. The colony was strong, but its strength was also a limitation. Innovation was discouraged if it challenged tradition, and individuality was suppressed for conformity. Mara realized that helping this society thrive would require more than simple tools or advice. It would require a shift in mindset, one small step at a time. Lyra appeared at the entrance of the deck, her presence quiet but deliberate. You are thinking about tomorrow already, she said. Mara nodded. Yes, we need to identify areas where humans can help without causing offense. Small contributions first, then larger ideas once trust is earned. Lyra frowned slightly. It feels difficult. My people do not easily accept outsiders, and even small disruptions can create resentment. True, Mara said, but even small changes, if done wisely, can ripple through a society. You are part of that society, Lyra. You know the rules. You can guide the change as much as I do. Lyra looked away, her eyes distant. I have tried before. My ideas were dismissed because I am not fully accepted. No one wants to marry me, to acknowledge me fully. Even when I speak for the good of the colony, I am ignored. Mara studied her for a moment. That is not weakness, Lyra. That is honesty. You know the truth of your society and you have endured. Many would crumble under that weight, but you continue. That is strength. And strength can inspire others if directed carefully. Lyra's gaze returned to Mara. There was something in the human's calm confidence that gave her courage. For the first time, she felt that change was not impossible. It was a challenge, yes, but a challenge that could be met with thought, strategy, and courage. The next few days passed quickly, each one filled with observation, subtle intervention, and building rapport. Mara introduced small efficiencies to the colony's systems, always ensuring that the Vian could claim credit publicly. She worked with Lyra to teach children and young adults, showing new methods that respected Vian culture while encouraging learning and creativity. Slowly, whispers of admiration spread through the colony. Humans were no longer just outsiders. They were problem solvers, innovators, and allies. But not everyone welcomed the changes. A faction of Vian elders began to watch Mara and Lyra closely, their suspicion thinly veiled behind polite smiles. They spoke in hushed tones, warning that outsiders could never truly understand Vian society and that any disruption, no matter how small, could bring disaster. Mara noticed the tension but chose not to confront it directly. She understood that patience was key. Change would be gradual, subtle, and undeniable. One evening, a small emergency occurred at a residential sector. A water conduit had malfunctioned, flooding the lower levels and threatening several homes. Mara and her human team rushed to the site. The Vian defenders tried to respond with traditional methods, but the flooding required improvisation. Mara took command, coordinating humans and Vian alike. Using a combination of manual effort, quick engineering, and logical planning, the flooding was contained before it caused major damage. The elders observing from above were silent. They could not deny the efficiency and calm leadership displayed by humans, nor the smooth cooperation between the two species. Lyra watched Mara with newfound admiration. You do not fight as a soldier only. You fight with intelligence and foresight. That is remarkable. Mara shrugged lightly. It is how humans survive. We adapt, we learn, we cooperate. Sometimes strength is not in force but in understanding and timing. The incident became a turning point in the colony. Stories spread of humans preventing disaster, of Captain Mara leading with wisdom rather than aggression. Even those most skeptical began to reconsider. Mara knew this was only the beginning. Trust had been gained, but respect would take longer. Later, Mara and Lyra walked along the edge of the observation terrace, overlooking the city as night fell. The lights of the colony shimmered like stars below, reflecting the meticulous order of Vian society. Yet Mara noticed something she had not before, the subtle glimmer of possibility. The colony was strong but brittle in some ways. Innovation was suppressed, and dissent was muted. Mara knew that these cracks were opportunities for growth, for change that could save lives and strengthen the society for generations. Lyra spoke softly, almost to herself. I want to help my people. I want to be recognized, not just for what I can bear or what I can do, but for who I am. Mara placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then you will, but it must be done carefully. We start with small victories. We show them that humanity is not a threat but a partner. And we do it together. For the first time in years, Lyra smiled, not just polite or controlled, but genuine. It was a smile that carried hope, determination, and the courage to face a society that had long ignored her. Mara felt a quiet satisfaction. The colony was beginning to see that humans could contribute not only through physical strength, but through intelligence, empathy, and action. As they returned to the quarters, Mara reflected on the days to come. Challenges would grow. Not all Vian would accept humans and not all changes would be welcomed. But she knew the path forward. Step by step, action by action, she would build trust and respect. And Lyra, once isolated and dismissed, could become a bridge between two species, showing that collaboration and understanding could overcome even the most rigid traditions. The colony slept under the twin moons, unaware of the subtle revolution taking place. Mara knew that patience, strategy, and courage would be required, but she also knew that humans had a way of surviving and thriving in the most unlikely places. And if she played her part well, the colony and Lyra would see that survival was only the first step. Growth, change, and acceptance were possible as well. Mara settled down to rest, her mind filled with possibilities. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new tests of patience and skill. But she felt ready. The first small steps had been taken. And in those steps lay the promise of something greater, an alliance between humans and Vian that could shape the future of the colony in ways no one had imagined. The morning began quietly, with the twin suns of Varanth Prime casting pale light across the colony. Mara Talon rose early as always and made her way to the observation deck. The city below was calm, almost serene, yet she knew calm was often a fragile illusion. Any society, no matter how orderly, could be disrupted in an instant, and she had learned through experience that danger often arrived when it was least expected. Lyra joined her shortly after, moving with quiet confidence. Her eyes scanned the streets below, noticing details that Mara might overlook: children sneaking small toys from workstations, adults exchanging coded gestures, and elders observing from high balconies. Lyra spoke softly, almost to herself. Even in their calm, there is tension. The colony moves as one, but not every heart beats in rhythm. Mara nodded. That tension is normal. Every society has it. It becomes a problem only when it is ignored or when no one knows how to respond. Humans have ways to detect and manage these pressures. You can too, if you observe carefully. They spent the morning walking through the residential sectors, Mara pointing out small inefficiencies and areas where humans could assist without disrupting Vian culture. They installed temporary water filtration units in areas where older systems were slow, and helped adjust the flow of energy through several districts, reducing delays in transport systems. The humans worked with quiet precision, earning nods of approval from citizens who began to see them as more than outsiders. But the peace was shattered by a sudden alarm. Mara and Lyra heard the distinctive vibration of warning signals, a combination of deep tones and flashing lights throughout the colony. Citizens paused, looking upward as massive forms appeared in the sky. A fleet of raiders, alien and heavily armed, descended toward the city. Mara's instincts immediately shifted from observation to action. "They're attacking," Mara said, her voice calm but urgent. "We need to protect the civilians first, then organize defense." The Vian defenders moved quickly but hesitated in some sectors, unsure of how to respond to the unexpected aggression. Their combat protocols were highly structured, relying on predictable formations and strict sequences. Mara assessed the situation in seconds. Waiting for protocol to take full effect could cost lives. She signaled her human team and Lyra. "Follow me. We need to act faster than their routines allow. Humans have adapted to unpredictable combat for centuries. Use your skills, adapt your strengths, and focus on saving lives first." The three of them moved through the streets, directing Vian civilians to safe zones while coordinating defensive teams. Mara noticed gaps in the colony's defenses where raiders could strike most effectively. She quickly implemented small but decisive adjustments, moving units into positions that allowed for maximum protection and minimum casualties. Lyra followed closely, her confidence growing as she saw Mara's methodical approach. "Your style is different from ours," she said, shouting over the chaos. "We rely on strict rules, but you improvise. You see what is needed and act." "Flexibility saves lives," Mara replied. "Rules are guides, not chains. Adaptation is survival." As the raiders began to fire on the city's outer sectors, Mara led a small squad of humans and Vian soldiers to intercept. Using a combination of strategy, human ingenuity, and Vian abilities, they created a counterattack that disrupted the raiders' formations. Mara coordinated movements, using signals and timing that the raiders could not anticipate. The Vian fighters, initially hesitant, followed her lead, discovering that their structured combat could be enhanced with quick, flexible tactics. The battle was intense. Explosions rocked the lower city sectors, and panic spread among civilians. Mara remained calm, issuing precise instructions and adapting strategies in real time. Lyra assisted, guiding young Vian soldiers and helping evacuate families. For the first time, she felt the thrill of purposeful action combined with moral responsibility. The human veteran had taught her that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Hours passed, and gradually the tide of the battle shifted. Mara's combination of human tactics and Vian strength allowed the defenders to regain control of key areas. The raiders, unable to predict the cooperation between humans and Vian, began to retreat. The city had been damaged, but the loss of life was minimal thanks to Mara's leadership and foresight. After the battle, the council convened immediately. The elders, previously skeptical of humans, were forced to acknowledge the contribution of Mara and her team. Their faces were a mixture of shock, admiration, and reluctant respect. Mara remained composed, speaking directly but respectfully. The colony survived because humans and Vian worked together. Your rules are strong, but flexibility saves lives. Consider this a lesson in adaptation, not an insult to tradition. One elder, his skin faintly glowing with tension, spoke hesitantly. Your methods, they are unconventional, yet the results are undeniable. You have saved lives that might have been lost had we relied solely on protocol. Mara nodded. I understand your hesitation, but every species must learn to adapt to threats. The future will always bring challenges we cannot predict. We must be ready. Lyra stood quietly, her mind racing. She realized that Mara had not only saved the city, but had also demonstrated a path for her people, a way to evolve without abandoning their culture entirely. She looked at the human captain, admiration and gratitude shining in her eyes. The following days were filled with recovery efforts. Mara worked with both humans and Vian to repair infrastructure, restore services, and rebuild damaged districts. Each task reinforced trust. Citizens who had once been wary now approached humans for guidance, and Lyra found herself recognized as a leader who had facilitated change, her voice finally heard. However, Mara knew the real work was only beginning. The raiders had shown that the colony was vulnerable, not just physically but socially. Their rigid protocols and resistance to change had almost cost lives. Mara realized that to truly protect the Vian, she needed to continue building bridges between humans and Vian, demonstrating that collaboration was not a threat but a necessity. One evening, Mara and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Smoke still rose from several sectors, but life had begun to return to normal. The streets were filled with citizens repairing, learning, and moving forward. Mara spoke quietly, as if to herself as much as to Lyra. The battle is won, but the war for survival and growth is ongoing. This colony has strength, yes, but it must evolve, and humans can help guide that evolution. Lyra nodded, her expression thoughtful. I understand now. Your presence is not just about survival. It is about showing that we can do better, that change does not mean destruction. You have given me hope, Captain, hope that we can be stronger without abandoning who we are. Mara smiled faintly. Hope is the first step. Action is the second. And courage, true courage, is what carries both to reality. In the following weeks, Mara focused on training and strategy. She worked closely with young Vian soldiers, teaching them tactics that combined their natural abilities with human improvisation. She led drills, simulated attacks, and demonstrated problem-solving under pressure. Slowly, the rigid structure of the Vian defenses began to incorporate flexibility, allowing them to respond to unexpected threats without panic. At the same time, Mara and Lyra developed programs for civilians. They introduced methods for learning that encouraged creativity, problem-solving, and cooperation. Mara emphasized respect for tradition while showing that adaptation could enhance, not replace, their culture. Lyra became a natural partner in this effort, her insight into Vian society guiding humans in ways Mara could not predict. The council observed quietly, often skeptical but increasingly impressed. Elders who had once opposed any human intervention began to see that the colony could benefit from outside perspectives. Mara's calm leadership, combined with tangible results, had begun to change minds. One afternoon, Mara was called to a private meeting with the council. The head elder, a stern figure with faintly glowing markings, addressed her directly. Captain Talon, your actions have saved this colony. Your methods are unconventional, but they are effective. You have proven that humans can be trusted allies. Mara inclined her head. Thank you. My goal is not to replace tradition, but to strengthen it. This colony has great potential. Together, we can ensure its survival and prosperity. The elder's gaze softened slightly. We will consider your recommendations carefully, and we will allow greater cooperation between humans and Vian in the coming months. But understand this, change will be slow. Some will resist, and not all will agree with your methods. I understand, Mara said. I expect resistance. But progress requires patience and persistence. We will work together step by step. As Mara left the meeting, Lyra met her in the hallway. Her eyes shone with determination. We have made a start, she said. I feel empowered, not just for myself but for my people. They can see a path forward now. Mara nodded. This is only the beginning. We have proven that humans and Vian can work together, but the real challenge will be maintaining that trust and expanding it across the colony. There will be obstacles, yes, but we are ready. That night Mara stood on the observation deck, watching the twin moons rise over Varanth Prime. The colony was quiet, recovering from the chaos of the attack, yet alive with a renewed sense of purpose. Mara felt a rare satisfaction. They had faced their first major challenge, survived it, and emerged stronger. The Vian had begun to see humans not as unpredictable outsiders, but as partners capable of enhancing their society. And somewhere deep in her thoughts, Mara knew that the lessons learned here would be needed again. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable. Threats would come in many forms, and the ability to adapt, cooperate, and act with courage would be the difference between survival and extinction. For the first time, Mara felt that humans and Vian could face the future together, not just surviving but thriving. And Lyra, once isolated and dismissed, had begun to find her voice, her strength, and her place in a society that had long ignored her. The battle had ended, but the work of transformation had begun. And Mara, the human veteran, was at the heart of it all. The days after the raid were filled with activity, planning, and reflection. Mara Talon moved among the Vian with a quiet determination, helping to rebuild infrastructure, retrain defenders, and strengthen relationships between humans and the colony. Her calm leadership and careful strategy had earned respect, but she knew the real test was yet to come. The attack had shown that survival depended not only on courage and strength, but also on trust, collaboration, and the ability to face moral dilemmas. Lyra walked beside her through the central plaza, watching as young Vian practiced drills under Mara's guidance. The children had been hesitant at first, unsure of the human influence, but they were learning quickly, encouraged by Mara's patient methods. Lyra felt a sense of pride. The colony was changing, subtly but undeniably, and she had played a key role in that transformation. Yet, despite progress, tension lingered. Some elders still whispered doubts about humans, while others worried that the presence of outsiders would erode Vian culture. Mara understood their concerns. Change was uncomfortable, especially when tradition had been followed for centuries. But she also knew that progress was necessary for survival and growth. The challenge now was not just physical, but social and moral. One afternoon, Mara received an urgent message from the council. A neighboring sector of the colony had discovered a series of ancient tunnels beneath the city. These tunnels were remnants of early Vian history, rarely visited and considered sacred. However, recent seismic activity had caused partial collapses, threatening the stability of buildings above and potentially endangering hundreds of residents. Mara convened her human team and Lyra to assess the situation. We need to act quickly, Mara said. The tunnels are unstable and the people above could be at risk, but these tunnels are sacred. Any damage could offend traditions. We must proceed carefully. Lyra nodded, her mind already racing. I can guide you through the history of these tunnels. The elders will expect respect for every stone, every carving. You must understand their significance before taking action. Together, they descended into the tunnels. The air was cool and damp, and faint echoes of water dripping off the walls filled the passage. Mara examined the structural damage, noting weak points and potential risks. She quickly devised a plan to stabilize the tunnels using temporary supports and controlled reinforcement, all while preserving the historical and cultural integrity of the space. As they worked, Lyra spoke quietly about the significance of the tunnels. These passages represent the foundation of our society. They are a reminder of our ancestors' struggles and achievements. To damage them would be dishonor, even if done unintentionally. Mara listened carefully, nodding. I understand. Humans have similar sites in our history. We honor them while also finding ways to protect our people. Respect and safety can coexist. Hours passed as they worked meticulously, placing supports, reinforcing walls, and guiding Vian volunteers in careful excavation. Mara's strategy balanced efficiency with caution, earning nods of approval from Lyra and the young Vian assisting them. By the end of the day, the tunnels were stable, and the threat to the buildings above had been neutralized. The success brought Mara a new level of recognition. The elders, who had watched from above, approached her privately. Captain Talon, one elder said, his voice measured, you have acted with respect and wisdom. Not only have you preserved our history, but you have protected our people. We see now that humans bring value beyond strength alone. Mara bowed slightly. Thank you. My goal has always been to protect life and promote cooperation. The people and their traditions matter equally. Despite the acknowledgement, Mara could sense that the council was still testing her. They wanted to see how she would respond to a situation that involved not just physical danger but deep ethical questions. And Mara understood that this was the true defining moment, not a battle against raiders, but a challenge to the values, courage, and morality of humans and Vian alike. The following day, a crisis arose in an unexpected form. A severe storm swept across the colony, causing flooding in lower sectors and disrupting power lines. While the immediate physical threat could be managed, the social and political consequences were significant. The elders feared that panic would spread, undermining trust in the council. Mara knew that swift, decisive action was necessary, and she moved quickly to organize rescue efforts. Humans and Vian worked side by side, evacuating civilians, reinforcing damaged structures, and providing aid to those trapped by rising water. Mara coordinated teams with a mix of strategy, adaptability, and clear communication. The Vian soldiers followed her lead, learning to improvise while maintaining their structured approach. Lyra assisted by calming citizens, guiding families to safety, and managing volunteers with patience and authority. Amid the chaos, Mara noticed that some elders were hesitant to issue orders, reluctant to act outside traditional protocols. She approached them calmly. The rules are important, she said, but right now, lives matter more than ceremony. You have the authority to act, and we are here to support you. Do not hesitate because of fear of breaking tradition. The elders exchanged glances but nodded, allowing Mara to implement her plan. Within hours, the immediate danger was mitigated. No lives were lost and property damage was minimized. The storm passed, leaving a colony that was exhausted but intact. In the aftermath, the council convened to assess the response. Mara presented her observations, highlighting not just the physical outcomes but the importance of flexibility, communication, and cooperation. This storm tested the colony in ways we could not predict, she said. Humans and Vian working together saved lives. Tradition is important, but it must adapt to circumstances. Survival requires action, understanding, and trust. The elders listened, their expressions serious. Lyra spoke next, her voice steady and confident. Captain Talon has shown us that courage is more than obedience. Strength is not only measured in battle or power, but in the ability to act wisely, to protect, and to inspire. We can honor tradition while embracing change. This is the lesson we must remember. A silence followed, broken only by the low hum of the city outside. The council members exchanged quiet conversations, their hesitation giving way to reluctant acknowledgement. Mara felt the weight of the moment. This was not just recognition. It was the beginning of a shift in culture, a step toward a society that could survive not only through rules and rituals, but through understanding, courage, and collaboration. Later that evening, Mara and Lyra walked along the edge of the central plaza, the twin moons casting soft light over the city. Lyra's usual guarded expression had softened into something like hope. "I never imagined humans could understand us so quickly," she said. "You see value where others see only disruption." Mara smiled faintly. "Humans survive by understanding patterns and adapting. We learn from mistakes, observe carefully, and act when necessary. It is a skill honed by necessity, but it applies to any challenge, physical, social, or moral." Lyra stopped walking and looked at Mara seriously. "You have taught me something important too. That courage is not about rules or strength or lineage. It is about doing what is right, even when it is difficult. You have given me the confidence to step forward, to speak, and to act." Mara placed a reassuring hand on Lyra's shoulder. "And that is why you will succeed. You have the knowledge, the strength, and now the courage to influence your society for the better. Change is not easy, but it is possible, and you are not alone." In the days that followed, Mara focused on fostering collaboration between humans and Vian across multiple sectors. She implemented training programs for soldiers and civilians alike, emphasizing problem-solving, adaptability, and communication. Small councils were formed in each district, allowing humans and Vian to discuss improvements and share ideas. The results were subtle but significant. Efficiency increased, morale improved, and trust between species deepened. Lyra emerged as a leader among her peers, her voice no longer overlooked or dismissed. She guided volunteers, coordinated programs, and spoke with confidence at council meetings. Mara observed quietly, knowing that the true success of their efforts lay not in immediate recognition, but in the empowerment of individuals like Lyra. One evening, Mara received a message from the Central Council. They requested a private meeting to discuss the next steps for the colony. Mara entered the chamber, where the elders awaited her. Their faces were serious, yet their eyes held a hint of respect that had not been there before. "Captain Talon," the head elder began, "your actions have shown us the value of humans in our society. Your methods are unconventional but effective. More importantly, you have demonstrated a philosophy that we have long ignored. That survival depends not only on strength and tradition, but on courage, cooperation, and moral clarity." Mara inclined her head. "Thank you. My goal is to help the colony thrive, not to undermine it. Every society has wisdom and it must be protected, but wisdom alone is not enough. Action, understanding, and courage are required as well." The elder nodded. "We will implement changes based on your guidance, allowing humans and Vian to collaborate more openly. Your influence has begun a transformation that may shape our society for generations. You have shown us what true partnership can achieve." As Mara left the council chamber, Lyra met her outside. She looked at Mara with a mixture of awe and gratitude. "You have not only saved our people, but have given me a purpose beyond what I imagined. I see now that strength lies in courage, not just lineage or rules." "You have shown me the path forward," Mara smiled, "and you are ready to walk it. Your courage, insight, and leadership will inspire others. Humans can guide, but you will lead. That is the true measure of change." That night, Mara stood on the observation deck, looking out over the city. Lights flickered as citizens resumed their lives, rebuilding, learning, and adapting. She reflected on the challenges they had faced, the raid, the storm, the fragile social structures, and recognized that each trial had strengthened the bond between humans and Vian. The defining moment had arrived. Humanity's presence was no longer questioned. Their methods, perspective, and courage had reshaped a society, proving that strength was more than physical prowess. It was intelligence, empathy, and moral clarity combined. And Lyra, once dismissed and ignored, had found her voice, her strength, and her purpose. Together, humans and Vian had taken the first steps toward a future where collaboration, courage, and adaptability would define their survival and prosperity. Mara knew that challenges would continue to come. The galaxy was unpredictable, and new threats would arise. But for the first time, she felt a quiet certainty. This colony, with humans and Vian working together, could fa the colony of Varanth Prime was quieter than usual as the first light of dawn touched the spires and bridges of the city. The twin suns rose slowly, casting long shadows across the streets and plazas where humans and Vian had worked together for weeks. Captain Mara Talon stood on the observation deck, her eyes scanning the city below. The signs of recovery were evident everywhere. Citizens rebuilding homes, young Vian practicing new skills, and human volunteers coordinating aid. But Mara knew that true change went beyond what could be seen on the surface. It was measured in trust, collaboration, and the courage to act for the greater good. Lyra appeared beside her, her movements calm and purposeful. The glow in her eyes reflected determination and pride. "The city looks alive," she said softly, "but it is more than that. I see people who believe they can contribute, who understand that strength comes from working together. That is new for our colony." Mara nodded. "The work is paying off, but there is more to be done. Trust and cooperation can grow fragile if not nurtured. Our next steps must strengthen the bonds we have formed." Over the past weeks, Mara and Lyra had implemented programs throughout the colony. Training sessions taught soldiers to combine Vian techniques with human adaptability. Schools encouraged children to explore problem-solving creatively while respecting tradition. Community councils were established to allow humans and Vian to discuss solutions together. Each program reinforced a simple but powerful lesson. Collaboration was not a threat but a strength. Despite the improvements, resistance remained. Some elders and citizens feared that humans' influence could erode Vian culture. Mara understood their concerns. Change always created uncertainty, especially in a society that had survived for centuries through strict rules and traditions. But she also knew that progress required not just action, but demonstration of moral courage and effectiveness. Humans had survived in countless societies, not by abandoning their principles, but by showing their value through deeds. One afternoon, a new challenge arose. A distant star system, sending an automated distress signal, indicated that a neighboring Vian settlement was under threat from an unknown predator, a massive, predatory species that had attacked settlements before. The colony's council debated the issue nervously, unsure if they should intervene or focus on their own recovery. Mara recognized this as another defining moment. It was a test of courage, moral responsibility, and the ability to act beyond fear. "We cannot ignore this," Mara said firmly during the council meeting. "They are our people. They are vulnerable and we have the capability to help. Hesitation could cost lives. Humans act not just for ourselves but for others. That is the way we survive and thrive. And we must show that courage is universal, not limited to one species." Some elders murmured, wary of taking risks after recent events. Lyra stood beside Mara, her voice steady. "We have already learned that cooperation strengthens us. If we extend our hand to our neighbors, we reinforce that lesson. Action is required, and we must act together." The council agreed, though cautiously. Mara immediately organized a joint human-Vian task force. She carefully selected teams, pairing humans with Vian who had shown initiative and trust. She included Lyra in the leadership, knowing that her understanding of the species, the culture, and the social dynamics would be essential. The journey to the threatened settlement was tense. Mara's tactical mind worked constantly, anticipating potential obstacles while maintaining flexibility. The Vian soldiers were cautious, but learning to rely on human adaptability. Lyra observed quietly, ensuring that Mara's strategies respected Vian culture and values. As they approached the settlement, the threat became visible. The predators were massive, four-legged creatures with thick armored hides and powerful jaws. They moved swiftly, tearing through structures and hunting indiscriminately. Mara quickly assessed the situation. Traditional Vian combat tactics alone would be insufficient. They needed strategy, speed, and precise coordination. Position units at these locations, Mara instructed, pointing to a holographic map projected from her portable device. Humans and Vian will work in pairs. Use your environment, cover, elevation, and timing. The predators are strong, but they are predictable in their hunting patterns. We exploit that. The operation began. Humans and Vian moved seamlessly, their combined strengths creating an almost flawless execution. Humans improvised traps and diversions, while Vian soldiers used their agility and endurance to flank the creatures. Mara directed movements in real time, adjusting tactics as the situation evolved. Lyra coordinated civilians, guiding them to safety and ensuring that no one panicked. She observed her people following instructions with confidence, something that would have been impossible a few weeks earlier. The transformation was clear. The colony had begun to internalize the lessons Mara had taught: trust, courage, and cooperation. The battle was intense, but the combined force was successful. The predators were driven away and the settlement was secured. No lives were lost, and property damage was minimized thanks to careful planning and rapid response. Mara and Lyra's leadership had proven that humans and Vian could not only survive together, but protect others through collaboration. After the operation, the council convened once more. Elders who had been hesitant before now acknowledged Mara's role. "Captain Talon," one elder said, "you have demonstrated not only skill but wisdom. Your presence has changed the colony in ways that will endure." Humans are more than outsiders. They are allies, teachers, and protectors. Mara remained calm, accepting the praise with humility. "I did not act alone. Vian courage and intelligence were essential. We succeeded because of cooperation, not individual effort. That is the lesson that must continue." Lyra stepped forward, her voice firm and clear. "Captain Talon has shown us that tradition and innovation can coexist. Our people can honor their past while embracing the future. Strength is not only measured in power or lineage, but in the courage to act wisely and with empathy." The council members nodded, some visibly moved. The message was clear. Humans and Vian could work together to face challenges, both expected and unforeseen. Mara had not only proven the practical value of human ingenuity, but the moral strength of empathy, courage, and leadership. In the weeks that followed, Mara focused on reinforcing the trust and collaboration they had achieved. She worked with Lyra to establish permanent training programs, disaster preparedness plans, and cross-species councils. These programs were not just practical, they were symbols of a new era, where humans and Vian could learn from each other and grow stronger together. Lyra continued to emerge as a prominent leader. Her voice carried weight in council meetings, and her actions inspired others to step forward. She had transformed from a dismissed and isolated figure into a symbol of courage, adaptability, and moral clarity. Mara observed her quietly, proud of the growth and the impact she had facilitated. One evening, after a long day of coordination and planning, Mara and Lyra walked along the outer terraces of the city. The twin moons shone brightly, reflecting off the metallic surfaces of the buildings below. The city was alive, buzzing with energy and purpose. Mara spoke quietly, as much to herself as to Lyra. This colony is no longer just surviving, it is evolving. Humans have shown value beyond combat, beyond ingenuity. We have shown that courage, cooperation, and moral clarity can change societies. Lyra looked at her, eyes glowing softly. And you have given me the courage to lead, to speak, and to act. I understand now that strength is not only in lineage or rules, but in moral conviction and action. You have taught me that humanity is not just about survival, it is about shaping the future. Mara smiled faintly. That is why we endure. Humans survive in the harshest conditions because we learn, adapt, and act with courage. And when our strength is combined with yours, we create something greater than either of us alone. The colony continued to thrive. Citizens now collaborated openly with humans, embracing methods that improved efficiency and safety while preserving tradition. The young learned both Vian and human techniques, blending the two cultures in a way that strengthened the community. Elders, once skeptical, had come to respect human contributions and acknowledge the value of flexibility and innovation. In time, Mara became a symbol of trust and leadership, not through conquest or force, but through courage, intelligence, and moral clarity. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were partners, respected allies, and contributors to a society that had once dismissed them. Lyra's story became a source of inspiration throughout the colony. She had faced rejection, isolation, and the weight of tradition, yet she found her voice and became a leader. Her courage and collaboration with Mara demonstrated that individuals could shape societies through action, empathy, and moral conviction. The twin moons set over Varanth Prime, casting a gentle glow across the city. Mara Talon stood on the observation deck, looking out at the thriving colony. She reflected on the journey, the raids, the storms, the moral tests, and the subtle transformations of the past weeks. Humanity had proven its value, not through strength alone, but through courage, intelligence, and the ability to inspire and lead. Lyra joined her quietly, her presence steady and confident. "We have come far," she said, "and yet I feel this is only the beginning. Together, humans and Vian can face whatever comes next, stronger than ever before." Mara nodded. "The future is uncertain. There will always be challenges. But now, this colony knows that collaboration, courage, and moral clarity are more powerful than fear or rigid tradition. And that is something no threat can take away." The city below was alive with movement, light, and purpose. Citizens rebuilt, learned, and thrived, knowing that humans and Vian could face any challenge together. Mara and Lyra stood side by side, symbols of courage, strength, and hope. They had proven that when humanity meets determination, compassion, and intelligence, it could change the course of an entire civilization. And for the first time, Mara felt the quiet satisfaction of a mission fulfilled, not just in survival, but in transformation. The colony had not only endured, it had grown stronger, wiser, and more united. As the twin moons disappeared below the horizon, Mara and Lyra remained on the observation deck, looking toward the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown challenges and opportunities. But Mara knew that with courage, cooperation, and intelligence, humans and Vian alike could face the future together, shaping it with strength, wisdom, and heart. And in that moment, the human veteran understood something profound. True strength was not measured by victories alone, but by the lives saved, the trust earned, and the courage to inspire change. The colony had learned this lesson, and through humans and Vian working together, the future was brighter than anyone had imagined. See the future with confidence, resilience, and courage.